I don't know if to this day they love the 8-bit console from Nintendo somewhere more than here in Russia or in our neighboring China. Yes, on the one hand, in the West, especially in the USA, there are no less retro bloggers and collectors of NES games. But even if the number of those experiencing nostalgia on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean is the same, you Western guys are still more inclined to love authentic and truly legendary platform games, to which Nintendo still continues releasing sequels up to this day. Those games, most of which we were deprived of here in Russia in the 90s due to the greed of pirates for expensive mappers and cartridges with batteries. Zelda, Kirby, Metroid, and so on.
Yes, we didn't have any of this back in the day. Steeper pirated only the games that could be made with the most cheap components.
And if over time all these game series caught up with us, both in their modern form and in the form of their predecessors from the 90s thanks to emulators, I really doubt you guys want to play the ones we had to play in the 90s. This includes both Russian simple games like Wheel of Fortune or Sea Battle and Chinese ROM hacks like Chip 'n Dale 3, Super Mario 16 or the Dendy version of Mortal Kombat. Well, maybe only out of curiosity. And a lot of our gamers still will. Yes, mostly out of nostalgia, but they will. And yes, for many of us, modern Chinese basement projects like 8-bit Harry Potter are also just another reason for a huge laugh. I mean, have you seen that? This is just hilarious. Harry Potter and the Mystery of Kung Fu. LOL. But then, in the 90s, many of us simply had no choice but to either play Chinese Mortal Kombat 56 peoples or not play at all. No, I didn't make a mistake here. 56 peoples. So, as you can understand, no wasn't an option. And I think this is the reason there is still a huge NES games community here in Russia today. And they not only play the games, they also try to expand the Dendy, or should I say NES? Well, let it be the 8-bit Nintendo library. There are a lot of classic games that are still translated in Russian. There are quite a number of really interesting ROM hacks made here, and some guys are even developing new games. And today I'm gonna tell you about the best ones.
Hello YouTube, my name is Victor and you're watching the Russian Video Game Comrade show.
I want to start with one of the most popular games here in Russia, Timecodes Battle City. This is the game that officially never left Japanese Famicom, but unofficially was bundled with almost every Dendy console in the 90s. If you haven't tried this one, I strongly recommend you doing it, as this game is a pure 8-bit fun action you're willing to see when you're turning on your NES. You have a tank, or two if you play cooperative mode, a bunch of enemies and a lot of one-screen levels. The goal is simple: kill everyone. There are some bonuses appearing from time to time, like a speed upgrade, time shield, or a bomb that will clear the screen from enemies, and a couple of simple rules, like the white blocks can't be damaged, or the eagle on the lower part of the screen is your base you have to protect. If it will be damaged during the level, you have to start it over. Go! And there were really a lot of ROM hacks for this game. Some of them were even released in the 90s. For example, we had a Chinese version named Tank 1990, where they added powered-up guns so you can damage white blocks, and a boat so your tank can cross water obstacles.
And there were a lot of others, and sometimes really crazy ones.
The first thing you think when you hear about a ROM hack is altered visuals or some small things like items or bonuses, right? But there were people who turned Battle City into a Pac-Man or a racing game. Yes, both of these are Battle City ROM hacks. These ones weren't made in Russia. It's just an example of how far it can go. The one that was can seem like nothing out of ordinary at a first glance. Yet another something changed a bit in the 5-minute mod. But if you take a deeper look, you'll realize that Binary City, made by a Russian modder ants, only looks like the original Battle City. And in fact, it's a totally different game. Binary City is a fairly old game. It was released in 2009, and in my opinion, it got much less attention than it really deserves. It seems to me, complete assumption based on my brief analysis of the author's YouTube channel, the idea of the game was inspired by the tool-assisted speedruns of the classic 8-bit games. The ones when the speedrunner completes 2 games simultaneously using only 1 gamepad. This stuff always looked insane for me, but I have to admire the perseverance of the players who can do this, because I can't. As I've mentioned earlier, the original Battle City can be played either by 1 or 2 players, and Ants decided that it would be an interesting experience to allow one player to control both players at once. Yes, only with 1 gamepad. But if it was the only invention in Binary City, I doubt it'll become an interesting game overall. So he also added several more. Do any of you happen to know the game Binary Land? The one where you have to control 2 penguins guiding them through spider webs, predators, etc. to the exit from the labyrinth? In this game you also have to control both penguins simultaneously with 1 gamepad. And when one of them moves to the left, the other one moves to the right. The most complicated thing here is the fact that the obstacles are different for each of the penguins, and you have to time your actions carefully to keep both of them alive. Naturally, considering the new mechanics, the levels of Battle City also had to be changed. It would be fun to play on the old ones as 2 tanks at once, especially considering reverse controls of one of them, but this would not be enough for the game to become something really new. So along with the mechanics, the author brought 38 unique levels into his mod, not only built on the above-mentioned need to play for 2 at once, but also with each new location developing and complicating these mechanics.
Let's take a closer look so you'll understand what I am talking about.
Level 1. Seems like nothing was really changed, except the level's layout. Basically, it's true. The player needs to get used to the fact that now he has to control 2 tanks at once, master the reverse control of the second one, and understand how to combine these movements to achieve the goal of defeating enemies before they get to the eagle. Level 2. Both tanks now are the same color. The reverse control disappears, but now there are 2 eagles on the level and both of them have no defense. In addition to that, only one of your 2 tanks can get to the zone where your shots can reach an enemy. This means that the other one will be really close to the eagle, and it can damage it throughout all the level. And one wrong shot leads to starting the level all over. Level 3. Here you can choose whether the tanks will move in the same or reverse direction yourself. Another new mechanic that you will have to get used to as quickly as possible. Why? Because here the slightest delay will also lead to an instant game over. But this time, not because of your miss shot. Here the second eagle you have to protect is placed on the enemy's side and it will take them less than a minute to get to it. So you have to get used to the new control mechanics in no time. And another feature is also presented here. If you shoot a bonus star, but only with 1 tank, not with 2 together, the bullet will bounce 90 degrees. Yes, it is possible to kill enemies hidden in the center of the screen with a grenade, but you will need the angle shooting mechanics later in the game, so you better start to get used to it here. Got it? Great! Then it's time to master your corner shooting skill at level 4, where your tanks can only turn but not move. And be careful with the eagle. Game over is just around the corner. And this is only the beginning. Each next level will expect from you the ability to combine all the mechanics you already know in one way or another, and from time to time add even more new ones. And yes, Binary City also has full-fledged bosses, with a big life bar, ability to teleport, and so on. Summarizing the above, if you already know and like Battle City or going to try it and will like it, you definitely have to check Binary City after it. But be ready for the pain in your butt even KFC's hot wings won't bring you.
Well, I've started with the most famous game in Russia, so I think I have to continue with the most famous Nintendo game in the entire world, right?
Naturally, I'm talking about Super Mario Bros. And I'd wish to tell you that there is a really awesome SMB mod too you didn't know about. But unfortunately, there isn't, at least as unique as Binary City. But there are a lot of mods in general for both Mario Bros. 1 and Mario Bros. 3, at least worth mentioning in today's video. The first ROM hack wasn't made by a Russian guy, but it's about Russia, or USSR to be precise, so I think it fits our topic. Kyle Paki, or KP9000, released a ROM hack named Communist Mario 3 in 2018. It was based on another ROM hack Communist Mario 1, made by another modder sets earlier. But the presentation in Kyle's mode is much more fun with all this USSR stuff on the screen and Mario's outfit, so I personally like this version more. Basically, this is the same Super Mario Bros. 3, but with only one difference. Mario here is a commie, so he can't collect coins. Well, in general, he can, but coins will harm and kill Comrade Mario. Avoid them, since they are the idol of capitalist pigs. These are not my words, by the way. It's written in the README file. And if you think this is not a problem, just try to play it. You will be amazed how many times you'll fall into the capitalist's trap of the habit of grabbing a coin, which will lead you to start the level all over again. Extremely funny stuff. Ah, and by the way, after defeating bosses, you will receive an Orthodox ruble. This one you can have. It's safe.
Another ROM hack made by the Russian guys Corpse Grinder and TI at first seems not worse at all. But if you had it back in the NES times, you'd be the happiest kid ever.
Can you tell me what was the only flaw of the original Super Mario Bros. Game? The two-player mode, right? Instead of playing together, you only had the ability to do it in turns. What kind of a two-player game is it, for God's sake? But it doesn't matter now, as thanks to Super Mario 2 player hack, you can try to play it cooperatively for real. And I have to tell you, it will be much more difficult this way. Maybe not as difficult as, for example, Battletoads, but really close to it.
Also, there are some commercial 8-bit games made in Russia today.
For example, PSCD Games company make games both for NES and Mega Drive. They made a port of Foxyland, Alien Cat, and even developed the make of Resident Evil 1 for Mega Drive. But this is a story for another time. The game I want to mention today is a 8-bit conversion of Oscar Celestini's Black Jewel, released in 2017 on Steam. This was a C64 style action game, and the PSCD team is making an NES version of it. Demo for Black Jewel Reborn is available on the internet, and anyone who's interested in it can test it themselves and be sure this is a real high-quality work, no less interesting and playable than the official NES games from back then. I personally will definitely look into the release and will play the full version when it's out for sure.
And the most fascinating game for today. Prepare to be blown away. Did you ever think NES could run Dune Battle for Arrakis?
And it can. Developed by TI, one of the guys who made the two-player Mario hack, this game shows that with the right approach we could have a lot more really awesome games on NES than we did. Sand Emperor also has only a demo now, but the latest ROM from March 2021 already has a lot of content. You can already play any of the usual 3 factions on random skirmish maps in it and test the full-fledged experience of the Dune on an 8-bit Nintendo console. And it works really nice. As it's only a demo, there is some lack of the original artwork, campaign scenarios, and some other stuff in it. For example, the main menu is pretty basic and schematic, with a lot of abbreviations, and to understand the meaning of all of these, you have to read the manual before starting to play. No matter what faction you'll select, there will always be only House Atreides Mentat in the cutscenes. But the gameplay is just fine, and you can play as any of the houses of Dune in the demo. One of the most fascinating things about this demo is the fact the ROM size is only 193 kilobytes. The Genesis version is a whole megabyte, and the MS-DOS version is 3.5. Yes, I understand that a lot of memory is consumed by the graphics, cutscenes, and animations. But a full working real-time strategy in less than 200 kilobytes is still a miracle for me. And all the buildings and units are here, and you can totally recognize all of them. All the features, except the ability to run over the enemy's marines with a harvester, are here too. Set up the base, train the units, and you're ready to interfere with the enemy. Well, at least you're supposed to. The skirmish maps in the demo are quite big and random. You can never know where the enemy base is, but they know precisely where yours is. And the AI in the game is really fast and will rush you in several minutes after the game starts. So, in order to at least repel their attack, let alone go on a counter-offensive, you will have to become a little more skilled, not only in the original game, but also in the NES version, as it has a little con in it, and it is the controls. You will have a really hard time with it, at least in the beginning of the gameplay. After all, NES has only two main buttons, A and B, and two additional, Select and Start. And this is a little less than you need for a game like Dune. At first I constantly got confused by them, and several times even sent my own tanks to attack my base, well, simply because I tried to switch to the base while controlling the tank. Otherwise, there are no complaints about the game, but only silent admiration for how the author managed to implement all of these on an 8-bit console. Ah, and I have to say that there is also music and digitized speech in the game too, and all of it fits into 193 kilobytes. Wow. Just wow.
Reporting. Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
I really hope this version of the game will be finished sometime, and maybe it will even have a release on a real cartridge. I'd definitely buy one for my collection.
The problem with creating such videos as today is that not all authors of new games, and especially modders, share any information about themselves. And sometimes it's not only a quest to find out where they are from, but even to find out their real name. Therefore, perhaps in today's video, I did not mention some other interesting projects for the NES made by Russian developers. If I'll find more, you can expect an updated version of the video sometime in the future, but for today, it is it. The things enthusiasts are doing for Nintendo's 8-bit console today, both Russian and foreign ones, sometimes just blows my mind. Yes, it is clear that this is partly due to technological progress, new tools, and other benefits of the 21st century that simply did not exist in the 90s. But the most important part of such projects, in my opinion, are people themselves. People who could not get into companies like Nintendo back then can finally reach out to game development and show everyone the way it has to be done. Just imagine if all these talents whose work I showed you today had a chance to work for Nintendo in the 80s and 90s, and how many great games we could have on the NES. The games that push old console to its limits and can impress gamers even in the era of PlayStation 5 and Xbox series. I'm trying to make more videos for the Russian Video Game Comrade show now, guys. If you like the show and want to see new episodes more often, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Let's make it this way. If we achieve only a $101 monthly patronage, I'll promise to release a new episode every month. How does it sound? The link to the Patreon page and to the other social networks are in the description. If you like weird Soviet and Russian stuff, follow me on Twitter. I post it a lot there. Well, I think that's it for today.
Thank you for watching today's episode. I really hope you liked it. Please press thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Good luck!